Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Christian Twitter was popping during lockdown. Clubhouse was a thing. Like, discourse and debate and conversation spiked so much during the pandemic because that's all we could do. Have we lost like honesty and integrity in politics? And this is like case in point of the answer to that question being yes. What is it about us as a community that we feel we are owed the blind support and the blind loyalty of, you know, people who have the potential to be our consumers? Welcome back to It's That Deep, the podcast. I'm going to do my standard intro. I am your host. My name is Feyisara, and this is a podcast where everything is that deep. We talk about pop culture and politics and news and celebrity culture and pretty much everything under the sun. But the goal is to find out not only what the heck is happening in the world, but what the things that are happening, what they reveal about who we are as people and where we are as a society. And we do that absolutely every episode. And this is episode number 24. So we're going to do it again. But yeah, welcome back. If you are a returning listener, kisses and loves and hugs. If you are new here, welcome. I'm not gonna say welcome to the family because that's just a bit corny. But welcome. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy today's episode. We are in June. She says in quotation marks because the weather's not really giving June. Also, this is a good place to state to anybody who feels like the 1st of June was the 6-month point of the year. You're wrong. I was deeply considering introducing a segment of things that are that deep. Things, basically just a space for me to rant. Things that are like not really that deep, but they really tick me off. Like people saying, oh my God, we're 6 months into the year on the 1st of June. And it's like, can we just do some basic mathematics? The 1st of July is the halfway point of the year, not the 1st of June. So we're not actually 6 months into the year just yet. But oh my God, I was seeing that everywhere. I was like, guys, can we just simple 1, 2, 3 calculation? Like, it's a bit shocking, you know, that we can't calculate that. But yeah, we are in June and some form of summer. The UK really has its own definition of what summer is. But I hope you're enjoying. I'm trying to channel like the summer with what I'm wearing today. But anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's been a good week. It's been a busy week for myself personally. Busy week on the election trail. And I'm actually not talking about the election this week because we're doing but we're doing some analysis and a breakdown of what happens over on my TikTok. And I also don't want to fatigue you guys with election talk. But it's so interesting how things change so quickly. I will just say it's been a poor week for the Tories. Really, really, really bad week. And I was even thinking last night about a TikTok I made. I think it was in January where I was like so confident. I even brought in some theory and I was talking about how the Conservatives will get re-elected because this country is like committed to misery. But I'm eating my words right now and I don't see a win for them on July 4th. However, we're not discussing that today. So you can see all my analysis over on TikTok. But yeah, I thought let's do something kind of light-ish. So let's just jump into our honourable picks. Okay, so honourable pick number 1 for this episode. And I've said to myself, Omar, just be going back to like your pop culture proclivities, if you want to call it that. That was a big word, wow. But I'm like, I don't want to beat you guys over the head with election talk. We are still going to talk election because duh. But it's not all the time. Do you know what I mean? We're doing that on TikTok. We can take a breather. So I was like, let me scan what's happening in the culture. Everyone's gone off to DLT Malta. Love Island is back on, which I'm not really watching because I just don't really care for Love Island anymore. And BKChat is back. I was like, bingo, there we go. Let's talk about BKChat because they dropped the trailer for season 6 on Sunday, I want to say. And then Wednesday they dropped the actual episode, the first episode, which I did watch because I don't come here and yap without doing my research. But I was like, okay, cool, let's talk about BKChat because I think, okay, let me run it back. If you don't know what BKChat is, basically it is a debate show produced by Trend Central and the format is very, I say that, but we're going to talk about that in a bit. The format is very much here's a controversial statement, men on one side, women on one side, let's debate it. That in itself is really interesting because it automatically places women and men as binary opposites, and that's not always the case in these debates, but that's the format. It started back in I want to say 2014. I know I was in my later years of secondary school when it started, and if you know me, you know that as an adult, I don't think the show is good at all. I just don't think it's a good show. However, as a child or as a teenager, I was sat. Every Wednesday evening, 8 p.m, I was there, plate of food ready. I was absolutely there. And then what would happen is the next day at school, you would go and you'd debate it and you'd talk about why people are crazy and who made sense on the panel and all of this stuff. So I was there, and it was incredibly popular when I was tween, that's a funny statement. But it was popular, and it was popular for a consistent number of years. And then they started to play with the format a bit. They did BakChat on holiday. They did just different variations of the show. They did reunions, and I feel like it started to dip a bit in popularity. And then obviously the pandemic came, and it was nobody's gathering anyway to make content. So it kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. But now in 2024, it's back. Obviously people have different responses to that. I think for me, there's just so many reasons why it doesn't work. I think making content post-pandemic is an incredibly difficult task anyway, just because actually think about the pandemic. First of all, I know it was horrible, a very, very dark time for many, many people, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed lockdown and being at home because, first of all, I like being by myself. Second of all, there was a very weird phenomenon that came out of lockdown, which was everybody was debating everything at all times. I remember, oh my God, Christian Twitter was popping during lockdown. Clubhouse was a thing. Then they opened Twitter Spaces. Discourse and debate and conversation spiked so much during the pandemic because that's all we could do. We can't go out and get a drink. We can't go and get a Nando's. I can't come to your house and just sit and watch Netflix. We have to communicate in another way. And usually the avenue through which people communicated was discourse and debate. And so I remember sitting on Zoom at 2 a.m. listening to people debate about progressive sanctification and all these topics, right? And so to come out of that space where we're all back to normal now, that phenomenon of debate and debating culture still persists, to the point that now we've introduced TikTok in it, and so people are debating about things all day, every day. That's all we do. And so I feel making content post-pandemic is difficult, but particularly debate content, particularly content that requires opinions to be bounced back and forth, I feel it doesn't really work anymore because we do that all day, every day. I don't need to wait for a show to come out every week for me to have a conversation with somebody about something that we differ on, because I can hop on Twitter literally now and do that. I can hop on TikTok and do it. We stitch people's stuff on TikTok. We comment on people's stuff on TikTok. We make duets with them. It is an economy of debate that has persisted since the pandemic. And I just feel to ask people to wait weekly to sit down and hear people do what people are doing online all the time doesn't necessarily make sense. I feel that is, for me, is one of the reasons why it doesn't work. I say that, but then I also think about formats like Question Time. Let's be honest here, Question Time is not too dissimilar to BakChat, obviously to free speech. Obviously, completely different topics, completely different audience. But Question Time is still, I watched Question Time last night, it's still debate heavy, right? But I think the difference between why a Question Time continues to work and a BakChat for me doesn't is because there's the level of expertise, right? So you go on Question Time, again, I watched it last night. These are representatives of political parties. These are people who have history and track records in politics, whether good or bad, I don't really care, but they are experts in their field. And so although the premise is the same, here's a topic, let's debate it, people are more inclined to tune into a question time because there's a level of expertise that's afforded that BKChat does not offer. BKChat is pretty much like influencers and clout chasers looking for like 10 minutes of fame that don't actually offer any expertise. They've casted one stupid red pill podcaster. I made a TikTok about him and that went viral, and I'm so glad it did because he's a nasty... Stop yourself, Feyisara. But he is a red pill podcaster whose entire brand is to poo on women, and to degrade women and to speak down on women. So who the heck is tuning into BKChat to hear him? I know as heck that ain't no damn expert in nothing, you know? So I feel like that's another reason why the format doesn't work, because what the debate format is offering is not expertise. It's just conversation that, like I said, everyday people are having all the time online. And then for me, another reason, and probably the most interesting to me as somebody that obviously enjoys media theory, is the fact that they've merged formats. So even if I use question time as an example, right? Like question time, the format is simple. Like I said, here's a question, let's debate it, let's hear from the experts, let's hear from the audience. BKChat is the same. Here's a statement, let's hear from the men, let's hear from the women. But where I feel like there may, it's not even confusion, but where I feel like maybe it doesn't work is the fact that they've started to merge, not even started, they've always kind of merged formats. So for example, you'd have the BKChat episode, but then you'd also have like a reunion. And if you know anything about reunions, you know I'm a big Housewives fan. If you've listened to this podcast, the reunions came from the Real Housewives format over in the US, where we would follow a group of housewives, and then like 3-4 months after the season finishes shooting, we would sit down for a reunion and see, have they hashed out any problems? Have they hashed out, you know, what they were fighting about during the season? But obviously that's not what we see in BKChat. We don't see personal relationships. We don't see, you know, personal conflict. If there is personal conflict, it arises out of the statement or out of the question that's posed. And so there's no investment in them personally. And so a reunion isn't required. Seeing them on holiday isn't required. It's now almost like a debate/reality show. And for viewers, I mean, this is just proven, like, formats work. And so when broadcasters, for example, find a format, they buy it and they rinse the heck out of it because they know that audiences respond to it and it works and it brings in money. You're not seeing, you know, the traitors turn into a reality show in that way because it's just a game show and the audiences have just bought into a game show. But where BKChat mixes like debate but also like reality TV, so there's elements of like Bravo in there but also elements of, like I said, question time in there, it causes confusion for the audience. It's like, am I watching a reality show? Am I watching a debate show? Is this Bad as UK or is this just BKChat? Like, I feel like clarity on that is what would make it way more successful in 2024, because audiences need to know what they're buying into. And so I think the return of BKChat is saying a lot about like where we are as people and how we just don't really care much anymore to watch people who don't have expertise debate on issues that are important. We don't. Like, people are fed up of that. People are also, like I said, doing that all the time. So we wouldn't tune in to watch others do that unless they offer us something we don't have. And so I think in general, just in the way of media consumption, patterns after the pandemic have changed massively. And the goal is to like align yourself with that quickly or audiences will not tune in. And so Godspeed. Like, I actually wish them, you know, good luck. I hope it achieves what they want it to achieve. Obviously, I'm not tuning in because besides the first episode, for research purposes, it's not my kind of show. But yeah, Godspeed, I guess. Okay, so honourable pick number 2. I can't believe I'm about to say this one, but before I get into what it is, you guys know me, I have to just do a little serious, just sprinkle a bit of serious stuff in there. We will get back to the pop culture stuff for the main story, but I can't believe I'm about to say this for my second honourable pick. Basically, the US Congress have passed a bill to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court for issuing an arrest warrant against Israel. I can't really believe that those words just came out of my mouth, to be honest with you guys. I'm quite incensed by that. But let me give you context if you don't know. Very recently, I can't remember how many weeks ago it's been now, but the ICC, the International Criminal Court, which they are basically, it's what it says on the tin, right? They are an international court for criminality. And so their job is to prosecute states or people for criminal activity, basically. Yeah, it's the long and short of it. And they issued the arrest warrant, I think it was like 2 weeks ago now, for Israel and some Israeli leaders. And the arrest warrant was for war crimes. So basically, they want to arrest Israel for committing war crimes against humanity, which, you know, if anybody's been following what's happening, that's exactly what's happening to a T. They are committing a full-blown genocide against Palestine. Although Palestine is not a recognized state yet, they are wiping Palestine out. Literally, like 2 days ago, there was an airstrike on a school, a United Nations school in Gaza, killing many, including children. I think I saw a stat the other day that like Gaza now has the highest percentage of like children amputees in the world because of what's been happening in the aftermath of October 7th. And so anyone with eyes can see, well, I say that, but every single, like, for the most part, global leader has failed to recognize that this is a genocide. But anyone with eyes can see that this is a genocide. And I bang on about it all the time, because sometimes I feel like we're in a fever dream where it's like, why are people not recognizing that we're literally witnessing a genocide before our own eyes? And everyone's just like, da 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 da, just running along, just like completely oblivious, not even oblivious, willfully oblivious to the fact that like they are wiping out an entire body of people. So the ICC, you know, issued arrest warrants for them a couple weeks ago, and now the United States of America have intervened with their long neck to pass a bill that would issue sanctions on the ICC for doing this. That's strange. There's so much in here, because first of all, they're doing their job. Like, let's just, they are doing their job. The ICC, by issuing this arrest warrant for Israel, are doing what is in the job description. It's literally in their job description to charge and prosecute individuals and potentially states for crimes of a global scale, aka genocide. And so, like, to sanction them, first of all, why is there even room for them to be able to do that? But like, to sanction them for doing their job just because they don't like it is crazy to me. I also think it's an incredible, like, this just speaks to how much power the US have. And like, the power is now just is out of control, because how they are able to sanction a international body that they should technically sit outside of, in terms of like, they should be subject to this international body, but they're now able to put sanctions on them. They've got far too much power. You know, there was a question on Question Time last night about, have we lost like honesty and integrity in politics? And this is like case in point of the answer to that question being yes, because I don't know in what world, you know, people, it's an election year everywhere, even in the US, and it's like people pander so much to the people that they want to gain their votes, so much so that you would think politics is about the people. But actually, when it's time to practice politics, all we see that is about alliances, and it's about what works for me, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I just think about that statement that says like, oh, absolute power, or power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Like, it's really sad. I don't really have any other statement besides the fact that it's really sad to see children are being blown to smithereens, and all Biden and Rishi Sunak can think of is, okay, but what does this do for us and our relations to Israel? Like, there is just such a loss of humanity in politics, and a loss of integrity, and money just rules everything. And it's terrible. I'm not gonna lie, it's so terrible. You know, even today or yesterday, Keir Starmer is like throwing around maybe recognizing Palestine as a state for his manifesto, but we know that if he gets into power, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that because it doesn't work for him politically. It works right now in this context because it means that actually he might capture a load of votes that he would have lost, but if he gets into power, politically that's not advantageous to him. So he's going to absolutely renege on that, and we know that in a second, right? So it's just crazy that like people's lives are being used as political tools and ways of like one-upping each other politically. It's just so sad, and we see it all the time. And I just wonder whether we can return back to this, you know, honest, integral, if that's a word, you know, kind of politics that prioritizes serving the people. So ban the US, but Joe Biden, your days are even numbered, so. Alright, let me jump into the main story. I did lie because I said it's a pop culture story. It's not really pop culture. It's more of the culture. Gosh, if you know me, I just got sick in my mouth because I literally hate that phrase, the culture. But yeah, I was scrolling through my Twitter streets, as I do, and I came across some incidents that happened at DLT Malta. Like I mentioned during this episode already, a bunch of the saints are at DLT Malta. If you don't know what that is, basically DLT are like a party events company. They're like, this gonna sound so bad, but they're like the granddaddies. They're the granddads and the grandmas of like events, party organizations, because I feel like they came before recess. So they lean a bit older. But they're big, like they're really big. They throw parties here in London, and then they go to Malta every year or so. I feel like they've been doing it for like 4 years. It's not really my bag, I can't lie. I just feel like I would get bored, no? Like 5-6 days of straight party and seeing the same people. The only thing that changed was they wore different pants and bra yesterday, like same DJ, same music, same food. You know, it's a bit boring, but it's really, really popular, like I said. And so a bunch of people are out there now, and there was some incidents that have been shared on social media about how girls and women basically are being assaulted at DLT Malta, and they're being drugged, their drinks are being spiked. Apparently there's a particular degenerate going around injecting people with needles. Even as I say it now, I'm like, the severity of that is actually insane, like injecting people with needles. And so rightfully so, people are, you know, outraged, not only at the degenerates and the vagabonds who are leaving their homes in the UK, flying, you know, not necessarily across the world, but they're flying and have gone with the intention of ruining, you know, people's holidays, but also causing harm to people. Rightfully so, they are angry at that. But I feel like in what is human nature, they're directing their anger towards DLT because that's who they know to direct their anger to, if that makes sense. So, you know, people are tweeting the guy, you know, at DLT, and they're saying like, what's going on? Can we get a statement? Can we get some sort of understanding of what's going on here? And, you know, in all the things he could say, you know, in all of the ways he could address this, you know, he's just, you know, responded to certain tweets and said verbatim, "Let's be guided, please." That's all he said on the matter. And right now, as I speak, what's the time? It's 2:34 on a Friday. He's getting flogged. And rightfully so, because what a cheap and indifferent and raggedy and low down response to, you know, people's complaints that women, black women, are being harmed on your watch, at your event, by people who you've allowed access to this event. Like, that is a very degenerate response, and it triggers in me a conversation that I have with my friends, with my sisters, with myself all the time. And the crux of that conversation is, what the hell is wrong with black business owners? Like, why do we get in this, cycle and this pattern time and time again, where this relationship between business and consumer is always it always becomes so personal. I think there's a conversation in here about like the overfamiliarity and, the overstepping of boundaries that happens so often between Black consumers and Black businesses, and how there is, this expectation of like an entitlement, to blind loyalty. It's almost like we're catering to you. This is for you. So shut your mouth and take what we give you. And don't question us, don't critique us. And if you do, you're a hater. And I see it all the time. I remember, what's his name? Reese. His name's Reese. He owns Mani Devoir. He got flogged a few months ago because he was complaining that Black people don't support him, when actually he has a history of being, he's half Black. He has a history of being anti-Black. Candice Carty-Williams, okay, she's not anti-Black. She is the showrunner for Queenie, which I might give my thoughts on Queenie in another episode because they just dropped the first 4 episodes. But someone, critiqued the book that she wrote that they've turned into a TV show now. Why did she come and now attack the very person, pulled up all of their work and said, well, obviously your work's not good enough, to be adapted into TV? And, she was just moving very, very mad. And it's like, what is it about us as a community that we feel we are owed the blind support and the blind loyalty of, people who have the potential to be our consumers? Why do we get so personal? I think there's an irony where like, these events, in the case of DLT, exist and they presented themselves as an alternative to what's already out there. So obviously we know this age-old story of like, white nightclubs, white events don't really cater to the Black experience. And so that's where we saw the rise of the DLTs and the recesses. So it's interesting that they frame themselves, which they are, as an alternative to what already exists. But then they fall into those exact same traps of the very companies and events companies that they're trying to subvert, because they show us that it's actually not about experience. It's all about capitalism and getting your bag. Because I don't understand why, if, women, and we'll get into why it's even more insidious that it's Black women, but women are being harmed at your events on your watch, and you're not really concerned, because you're not concerned about the experience. You're concerned about the money and getting your bag and showing and proving that this was a successful event, maybe later down the line for sponsors or whatnot. And so there's an irony in that, like you falling into the trap that you were trying to avoid. Like I said, think it's extra insidious that this is a Black event. DLT is, for Black people. Let's be honest. We get other demographics that attend, but it is for Black people. And so it is, even back to what I was saying about like, this is a space that exists because other spaces did not make room for us. They didn't make room for the Black experience. Most certainly didn't make room for Black women, because we know, excluded pretty much everywhere. But this space exists almost like a, by us, for us. It's by us and we've made it for us, for our people, for our community. And so inherently, you're suggesting that this is safe. It's a safe space for us because we didn't have that out there. And so for me, it's extra sinister that this is a space designed to be safe for us, Black men and women alike. But the fact that Black women are feeling the brunt of the unsafety that's happening there, it does the nail in the coffin for me, because, there was stats that came out just the other week about how Black women in London suffer the most when it comes to femicide. They have the highest rates of femicide in London. And so if you have created a space for the safety of that very demographic, and the minute that they are being mistreated and abused, your response is to turn around and show us that you don't really care, is wicked. It's wicked, because you marketed yourself and people have bought into it based off of the understanding that you will provide a safe space for them. But actually, when push comes to shove, you don't care. And you can do that because there's a proximity that you have to your audience in a weird way that white businesses don't have with white consumers. That means that you can take advantage of them. proximity is killing us, because it means that you don't follow through on the necessary duty of care when things do happen, which will always, like, things happening is not his fault. People will be people will be wayward. That's always going to happen. But your response is telling us that there's a nonchalance because of your proximity to your audience, because you should have, I mean, I'm not a business person, but you should have first aiders in place. You should have had even people check in, you know, people's stuff at the door. That's what happens when you go to DLT here. That's what happens when you go recess here. People will check your bags. People will check what's on your person to make sure that the other consumers can be protected. You should have a spokesperson. You should have a PR person. You should have the structures in place to ensure that when things do happen, because like I said, they will, you as a business are protected and can respond correctly so as not to offend your audience. I also just feel like if you can't hack it, don't start a business. Who asked you? Who begged you? Nobody begged you. Go and find a 9-to-5. Take it easy. If you're not able to handle critique or handle even valid critique, this is not like, oh my gosh, like the drinks were dead. This is, you know, I'm a woman, I'm scared because I don't know if I'm going to turn around and get a needle injected into me. Are we serious? If you can't handle that level of critique, you should not be running a business. It's really as simple as that. And you shouldn't expect anything from your audiences. Like I said, I'm not a business person, but I feel like that should be business 101. Don't expect anything from your consumer. Humans are fickle. Humans are not, to be honest, we're not normal people. And so, you know, you shouldn't have an expectation that we will blindly support you. And you shouldn't throw a hissy fit when you don't get that. I don't understand why these people go into business. You know, I really think the fallout, again, this is Friday, so we'll see what happens over the weekend and into next week. But I think the fallout from this is really going to hurt DLT, because a lot of their consumers, like I said, are Black women. And so if you can't go DLT and feel safe anymore, then you lost like half of your customer base. So he might have to hold that L because of a bit of an ego trip. That's his problem. But yeah, I just think, you know, do better. Do much better. Love and blessings to all of the women who have been attacked on holiday. Like, they're supposed to be enjoying themselves and they're being attacked by degenerate men. So yeah, I hope they can sort it out, and I hope that they can protect the women, because that is really what's most important here. And yeah, we're going to wrap up the episode there. I feel like I'm itching to do some election talk, so we will do that next week, no doubt. But I hope you enjoyed the episode. We took it a bit, like I said, a bit more airy-fairy this week. No more like, hey, I needed a break from hating on Keir Starmer. I did. But I'll be back next week. Don't even worry about it. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow me. All my social media handles will be wherever the information is. Just connect with me. Let's talk. Let's gist in the build up to this election. I don't actually want to talk any more about DLT because they've proven themselves to be failures on a couple of occasions, and I'm not happy about that. But yeah, there we go. I will see you next week for episode 25. Ooh, 1/4 of 100. Love that for me. But yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.